The peak of athletic performance is Porsche, but it can also be the peak of breakdowns and repair costs. Armstrong is considered an expert because he's fixed about 5 of them, but every time the issue turns out to be really tough. A 2016 Porsche 911 GT3 RS, the first one to join us here on the channel. Let's go check out this sporty GT. But inside this beast, there was a problem that made Porsche itself refuse to fix it. That was after its first owner took it to a dealership because of a check engine light that appeared out of nowhere. And even though the car had full warranty coverage, they refused to take it in, and they also found that its warranty had been completely voided. So here we are, facing a problem we still don't fully understand. They move the car in to bring it into the shop, and they find an oil puddle on the ground underneath it. So they bring it in, and here the situation becomes clearer. The PPF protective film keeps the car looking sharp even after 10 years. Also, everything underneath is completely original and very clean. He lifts it up, and as expected, there's a major oil leak on the protective undertray. He takes it off to see what's going on behind it, and all he finds is oil around the drain points. He tries to turn it and is surprised to find it completely loose and not tightened at all, realizing that someone had worked on it before he got it. He removes the oil drain plug and drains what's left of the oil, and of course, there isn't much left at all. He then removes the oil filter to check for any metal shavings or debris on it, but doesn't find anything. While working, he discovers a suspension nut missing from its place, which confirms the suspicion that someone had worked on the car before them. So he continues his work and lowers the car to the ground, removes the rear wheel, and lifts it back up on the hydraulic lift. He removes the coil cover and pulls it back to take out the first spark plug, and its condition looks fine, completely normal, no issues. He pulls the second one out and notices some light moisture on it, but again, no visible damage. He now uses a camera to check the cylinder condition and doesn't find any problem or anything abnormal in there. That's the case for both sides of the engine, so on the surface everything looks fine, and there shouldn't be anything stopping the engine from turning smoothly. So the next step is closing the oil openings, then lowering the Porsche and starting to fill the engine with fresh oil, specifically 7.5 liters. He checks underneath to see if any leaks show up, but so far everything looks fine, no issues. He buys a new genuine battery from Porsche for $125, removes the old battery, installs the new one in its place, and connects it. He gets into the car and tries to listen to the engine turning over, at first, as usual, without the spark plugs installed, just to confirm the internal engine components are sound. He presses the start button and hears the starter motor engage normally. He confirms the engine is still in good shape so far, and of course it would be exciting if the problem turned out to be just the battery. As we saw, that got resolved once it was installed. But he can hardly believe it, expecting there are certainly other problems, so he moves on to continue the work. As for the spark plugs that had moisture on them, he heats them up so he can reuse them, then installs them himself on both sides of the engine, closes up the coils, and tries to start the engine. But the sound after installing the spark plugs isn't normal, and the car doesn't even start at all. So Matt quickly guesses the problem is in the timing, or in the timing chain belt, because any change, even a small one, in the valve timing of any engine will cause a problem, a misfire, or stalling. What follows is the engine shaking and vibrating abnormally and roughly. Matt also discovers a fuse that had fallen onto the seat next to him, which was there when he received the car. So they go through the car's wiring diagrams to figure out exactly what that fuse belonged to. As he quickly finds out, it's specifically for the fuel pump. But the question here is, why would someone disconnect just the fuel pump? So Matt gets a bit worried about that, reinstalls it, and tries to start the engine. And indeed, it starts up on the first try, running quite normally. And the good news is, there's no visible smoke coming from the engine, or any strange sounds, except for one, which we've almost gotten used to over the past period with Matt on the Veyron model, the sound of misfiring. Unfortunately, he also discovers the check engine light has come on at the same time. Here we start to understand a bit more, and the picture becomes clearer to figure out why this car ended up going to Porsche in the first place. Matt hooks up the diagnostic scanner to see clearly and learns from it that the entire right side of the engine isn't working at all. And strangely, it's completely disconnected. Even the camshaft sensors on that side aren't registering any movement, so that side is essentially fully cut off. When he steps outside the car to try to see which parts are actually moving, he does this using a thermal sensor and discovers that only the left side is showing a rise in temperature. This is naturally more visible on the exhaust, but the right side shows nothing at all, so he now checks the cylinder compression to see whether it's affected by the oil level or not. He puts the compression gauge on the first cylinder on the right side, cranks it to build up pressure, and it reads 75 pounds per square inch. He moves to the next one, same steps, and it reads even lower, around 65 pounds per square inch. The third one is much better, reading 125 pounds per square inch. The cylinder condition isn't too bad, and in theory, that shouldn't be preventing the engine from running. So he tries something else, checking the spark as it comes off the coils to rule out another part of the ignition process, which is air, spark, and compression. He brings the coil close to the block and hits the starter, and the spark does appear, but the engine doesn't turn over. This repeats across all the cylinders on the right side. Strange, abnormal, and very confusing. As we saw, the camshaft sensors on that side weren't working either. For the spark plugs to work properly and do their job correctly, they essentially need eyes, and one of those eyes is the camshaft sensor, which constantly feeds data to the ECU or computer. That, in turn, tells them exactly when to fire and when not to. So Matt swaps the sensor from the right side with the one from the left side. But the same problem persists, so the issue turns out to be bigger than what he initially thought. Armstrong now suspects there's a problem with the camshaft itself, or with the timing chain. So it's time to move to the fix, pulling out the entire engine and drivetrain assembly to be able to understand what's going on inside more clearly. He starts working right away, first removing the rear diffuser bolts from underneath, then lowers the car and removes the rest of them from above. He also removes the engine cooling fans and disconnects the sensor wiring. He unplugs the rear lights and takes them out completely so he can pull the diffuser out easily afterward. He then lifts the carbon fiber brace, removes the air intake housing from the throttle, and undoes the mounting bolts to take that out too. He pulls out all the intake tubing along with the diffuser from the engine and slides the engine hoist underneath. He gradually lowers it down along with the transmission, checking along the way for any visible issues with the wiring harness, because the diagnostic scanner had initially indicated a short circuit, but he doesn't find any exposed or grounded wire. The wiring looks fine and in good shape on visual inspection, so the second area he expected to check is this spot where the camshaft sensor is located. He removes the entire timing cover housing to get it out of the way. This gives him access to the crank pulley, letting him turn the engine over manually. Though that's not really important right now, so he starts working on the engine, inserting the camshaft locking tools, since Porsche engines are designed to be disassembled this way. He then removes the cylinder head cover bolts and takes it off, and the sight underneath is strange. The caps that hold the camshafts in place aren't there at all. It seems someone had removed them before, which could explain why the compression readings were inconsistent earlier when they were measuring compression on each cylinder. Oddly enough, this specific model year had a known issue at Porsche because of the design of the camshafts being manufactured at the time. The quality wasn't the best, and they wore out quickly. Matt now learns that the camshaft timing control units at Porsche are called VarioCam, and these here are loose and not properly secured. This could also explain why the camshaft sensor wasn't giving any readings. He removes the cover on the other side of the engine and finds the exact same sight, even though that side had been running fine before. So Matt starts by inspecting the camshaft area to get an initial look, checking which parts show wear and heavy friction that need replacing. Each side also has two camshafts, one for intake, fuel and air, and the other for exhaust. He continues working, removing the components securing the timing chain, sets them aside, and pulls out the camshafts. As for the exhaust side, as he had already noticed earlier, it was fine, but the intake side clearly had visible problems. Of course, an issue like this seems minor and small, but in the world of engines, wear on these parts affects the valve opening distance, causing less fuel or air to flow in. So Armstrong then goes and buys new parts for a total of $7,800 and starts preparing the new camshaft, which isn't cheap either. He goes to the engine and sets it in place with the new caps. He also greases the small clutches for the timing gears, and following the correct installation steps, mounts the camshaft onto them. He, of course, also sets the second exhaust side camshaft in place. Now comes the tightening step. Here, he needed to take the spacer, or the tensioner, for the chain. So he installs the part that holds the camshaft steady so it doesn't move. Then he installs the tensioning bolt he'll be securing with. The next step was installing the part that secures the tensioning bolt itself. He now starts tightening to the required torque. This was, of course, for both sides. After that, he removes the tools that had been holding the engine in place. Then he tries turning the engine over to make sure everything is fine. If there's a problem, then after one full rotation, the camshafts wouldn't line up correctly in their required positions. So he tightens the rest of the crank pulley bolts. Then he double-checks that the camshafts are properly aligned by reinstalling the locking tool again. The next step is on the right side, but before that Armstrong installs a new seal. He also replaces the gasket or the cylinder head face. He sets the head in place, then he tightens down its mounting bolts firmly. He also reinstalls the camshaft sensor for good, along with the rest of the sensors. With that, he's ready to work on the other side. Finally, then he removes the cover on that side. He sets the camshafts in place with their caps in the correct order, then he removes the timing chain. Once done, he removes the gears and takes out the intake camshaft. Its condition is better than the other side, but there's still visible damage. He also removes the lifter shims so they can be replaced. Then he sets the new camshaft in place. Here, he puts the chain back onto the camshafts. Then he installs the locking fork so he can set the timing. He also installs the other related part. Here, he tightens it down to make sure the grip is secure. When he's done, he removes the locking fork again. Following the same steps he did before, he replaces the cylinder head cover gasket. The next step, of course, is installing the head. After all these repairs, there will of course be a fresh set of spark plugs. He starts installing them in order on the engine. He'll then, of course, install the coils on top of them. He closes the cover on that side and moves to the other side to do the exact same steps. Importantly, he finishes and installs the front engine mounts. With that, the engine should be 100% ready for installation. He guides the engine underneath the Porsche and starts lifting it into place. Here, he tightens the mounting bolts for the drivetrain. The transmission will, of course, be with it too. He lifts a bit from the front and secures everything. He also connects all the electrical connections. He then goes to drain the old oil that was in the engine. After that, he removes the oil filter and takes it out. He installs a new one in its place, of course. He lowers the car and starts filling it with fresh oil. When he's done, he connects the battery cables at the front. He gets into the Porsche, and of course, this is a tense, nerve-wracking moment. He presses the start button, and the car fires up enthusiastically on the very first try. Finally, the sound of all 6 cylinders is heard. The sound is naturally very loud since the exhaust system hasn't been installed yet. So he turns the car off and clears all the temporary fault codes that were stored in the computer. He starts the Porsche again. This time, no warning lights appear at all. Finally, the sound also improves and becomes a bit quieter, but after a while, a misfire sound appears. So he plugs in the diagnostic scanner again. He tries to dig into the problem he was having through the fault code. He suspects there's still an issue, that the lifters weren't actually replaced. Unfortunately, this sends them back to square one. But before anything else, he decides to swap the position of the coils. He does this on cylinders 4 and 6, since those are the ones showing the visible problem. He starts the car again, but frustratingly, the situation stays the same. Nothing has changed. So he now tries to check via the diagnostic scanner the variance value that can be applied to the camshafts, because as we saw earlier, these models allow control over the valve opening timing. He finds the opening timing changing quickly, which is normal. But what's not normal is that the value reaches 22 degrees. That means there's a problem with the timing calibration. The valve is opening at an angle it shouldn't be reaching, 22 degrees. To understand the situation better, it's the system or software that controls this. And for this specific model, the opening degree should be somewhere between 6 and 12 degrees. In theory, the higher that number, the longer the valve stays open. This allows more air and fuel to pass through. And this, of course, applies to the exhaust camshafts too, which is most likely where the problem lies. So he goes back to work, disassembling the engine following the exact same steps as before. He removes the covers on both sides of the engine. He checks for any issue with the camshaft that was just installed, or with the timing, by installing the locking fork and turning the engine over. But nothing shows up this time, so he removes the camshaft completely. And as expected, there's nothing visibly wrong with it, so he gets in touch with the Porsche dealership to understand the issue. He learns from them that this needs to be resolved on their end, because there's a dedicated tool that calibrates the timing. This process is done electronically after the mechanical work he's completed. It's a mandatory step after the mechanical installation that was done, so he goes over everything one final time. He puts back the camshafts he had removed earlier. He also reinstalls the engine into the Porsche. He repeats the same steps we saw at the beginning. He connects all the sensors, fills it with fresh oil and coolant. He then goes to start the engine, but, as expected, the exact same result occurs. So he closes up the intake housing on the throttle body, then the upper strut brace. The next step is installing the cooling fans, as well as the exhaust muffler and heat shielding. After that, he secures the rear diffuser. And, naturally, he'll install the rear lights. Here he installs the underbody panel to seal everything up completely. And, with that, the car is finally 100% assembled. He gets into the Porsche and tries to drive it. He drives it, but the car isn't moving normally or smoothly at all. So he hooks up the diagnostic scanner again. He tries to figure out a solution to the problem that's still there. At this point, Armstrong starts to suspect the problem is still mechanical, not electronic, separate from what Porsche had told him about the software issue. But here, Matt pauses the work and goes back to review the video footage that had been recording to spot any mistake in the work they had done, but everything here looks fine. Until suddenly, he notices something new. That the timing gears are different from each other. On the left side of the engine, the intake gear was larger and the exhaust one smaller. On the right side, though, it was the opposite. At this point, Matt decides he's not going to waste any more time. He pulls the engine out for the third time and takes it apart, quickly and completely. He removes the timing gears from under the timing chain. He swaps them around to reassemble everything correctly and quickly. Naturally, he needs to reset the timing again from scratch. He closes up the engine, lifts it, and installs it back into the chassis. He puts everything back in its place again. He then goes to start the engine, and it fires up on the first try again, of course, but this time he lets it warm up a bit. Then he revs the engine up and listens. Normally, the check engine light would have come on by now, but this time, nothing shows up on the display at all. Also, the engine sound is clean, with no misfiring or stuttering. So he puts the wheels back on and lowers the Porsche to the ground. He takes it out for a quick test drive, and things look very promising and normal. Definitely a model with strong performance and engine feel. Everything is running beautifully and perfectly, until a coolant hose bursts near the radiator and the car starts overheating. So he tows it and brings it back to the shop again. He lifts the car and discovers the hose just wasn't properly seated, so he reinstalls it and secures it firmly this time. Then he refills the coolant completely. He takes it out on the road again. This time, everything is completely fine. After a while, he gets the car serviced at the dealership, including a wheel alignment. So, of course, a beautiful model. But unfortunately, trying to fix it or diagnose the fault was extremely exhausting, to the point where he pulled and disassembled the engine 3 times. So, thanks if you made it all the way to the end. Let me know in the comments. Do you prefer the old GT3 RS model or the current one? And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel here. That's it. Peace out.